going to get started. Thank you so much for coming. We're really happy to have you guys here. This is what we expect to be the first and hopefully a series of dialogues about how the CUNY Graduate School of Public Health and Health Policy and our local community-based organizations can work together. So the idea for this panel first came from Marilyn, who teaches with me a course in program planning and funding as part of our master's curriculum. And we collaborate with some of you in having our students write grant proposals for your organizations. And so the idea started with that. But we've also just recently come together as a faculty to create this independent school of public health and move to the neighborhood. I know a lot of you are in the neighborhood and said you didn't even know we were here. So we are happy that, to get to know you and to brainstorm ways that we can have concrete collaboration. So for anyone who's not familiar with our school, briefly, we have 4 departments in community health and social sciences, epidemiology and biostatistics, health policy and management, and environmental, occupational, and geospatial health sciences that also includes nutrition. And so our students are master's and doctoral students in those areas. And part of our mission at the school is to promote and sustain healthier populations in New York City and around the world, and to shape policy and practice in public health for all. So with that in mind, today we have representatives from CBOs in the area whose missions and programs specifically reflect our school's priority areas, as well as our student and faculty interests. Those are reproductive and maternal health, child and adolescent health, food policy and nutrition, HIV/AIDS, and we'll probably hear about even more beyond that. So to welcome our panelists, first I'd like to introduce the chair of our Community Health and Social Sciences Department and Associate Professor Diana Romero. Did you pull up your slide?
Thank you, and welcome to our guests this afternoon. What I've just learned from Meredith's introductory comments is that it's good to talk ahead of time, because she just said a bunch of things that I was going to say. But on behalf of the department that I'm a member of, Community Health and Social Sciences, I really do want to welcome our neighbors in the community for coming today and participating in this first in the series. And I also want to thank Meredith Manzi and Marilyn Aguirre Molina for putting on this really exciting event. I have a slightly different take on how this came about. I know Meredith just said it was Marilyn's idea. I have some recollection that we were at a faculty meeting and we were talking about how many of the CHAS classes or community health classes that our students take involve engagement outside of the classroom, and then maybe that's how this got going. But we were talking about how we have classes that our students in CHAS, community health, must take that involve organizing for health, program planning, evaluation, and research, and there are many requirements and elements of those courses that actually require students to leave the classroom and go into the community. So this is sort of an extension, I think, of that conversation and what we've been wanting to get going with as a school since we moved to this new site. Aside from the classroom, many faculty and students already engage with various community stakeholders and partners. Indeed, many of our students come to us as full-time, part-time, or somewhere in the middle employees working at nonprofit CBOs, the health department, education and healthcare related organizations, and other entities involved in health and social services. This is why they're seeking advanced training with us. We all know that doing the work of public health involves, if not requires, collaboration, the joint effort of multiple individuals or groups to accomplish a shared task or project, and whether we call it CVPR, PAR, community engagement, or something else, it requires the commitment of the respective collaborators in a very multifaceted way. And I think at minimum, that means allowing for adequate time to build collaborative relationships, dedicating or finding resources other than time, right, needed to actually do the work, and recognizing the distinct and complementary skill set that we all, bring to collaborative efforts. I know that this is part and parcel of the projects that many of us in the department here in Chas are involved in, and an important part of our students' training, what's needed to be able to develop effective and successful collaborations. I'm thrilled, that we have several leaders of organizations here in Harlem with us today representing the range of issues that Meredith just pointed out. And again, to echo what she said, we see this as the first in a series, and really thank the four of you sitting here today as helping us to, kick this off. So with that, welcome again, and I look forward to our conversation.
Next, I'd like to introduce the Dean of the school, Ayman Al-Mohandes, to say a few words. Welcome.
Thank you. This is hopefully one of a series of events that we'll have at the school where you are not invited guests, but you are stakeholders of the school. As you may have heard from the presenters, we don't have a department in Greek philosophy, and we don't have a department in astrophysics, because public health is a very applied science. And therefore, we cannot survive unless we validate ourselves by your collaboration. So you are not guests here, you are partners. You are not guests here, you are partners. In my long career in medicine and in public health, my success has been entirely centered and grounded in successful partnerships with communities. Community organizations, and advocacy groups. What I have learned is that when we displace each of these two entities into the other's space, they can never be fully comfortable. So if we displace community organizations and transplant them in an academic space, they're not fully comfortable. When you transplant academicians into a community organization, they may pretend that they're comfortable, but really they're not fully comfortable. That is a challenge, because at the end of the day, our challenge is to create a space that is really a space where we come into it as equal partners with a new aura, a new concept, original thinking, and an investment in partnership, where we create a new reality of collaboration. In our world, in academia, very frequently, we define success of faculty in three categories: teaching, research, and what I find rather an obnoxious terminology, service. And that in itself is very old thinking. Because when our faculty enter into a community organization, they're not there to serve. They are there to learn. And if they don't approach this with the right vantage point, then they're losing an opportunity. They may contribute their skills, they may contribute their knowledge, but they have to be in a learning mode where they are willing to acknowledge that there are gaps in their skill sets that can be complemented by what you know to do and how you do it best. And at the same time, we are very needy of your open embrace. So you have to embrace us equally and acknowledge that we have something to contribute and are coming to you with goodwill. So we need to invent a new word for this. I hope that by the end of the day, we invent a new terminology. Collaboration is just not entirely fulfilling to me as to what this terminology needs to be. It's more than collaboration, partnership perhaps, but even beyond that. As the dean of this school, I hope to be reflective of the general sentiment of my faculty and students, and I will say that what I mentioned today in terms of a framework of where we can exist together is truly a reflection of what our faculty feel, what they have inculcated in me, and what I have learned with them, through them, and from them. So please own this space and consider it one of these sacred spaces that we will create together as a space where we can reinvent ourselves as one, where we shed what makes us apart and embrace what brings us together. So forgive me for saying, but I give you a group hug, an intellectual hug, a psychosocial hug, a political hug, and a spiritual hug. Thank you for being with us today.
Okay. Now I'd like to introduce our panel members so we can get started. So starting at my far right, Tamisha McPherson has worked in the healthcare industry for more than 24 years. Ms. McPherson is currently employed as the Chief Program Officer at Harlem United Community Health Center. She has expertise in management, practice administration, HIPAA, billing compliance, medical coding, and revenue cycle management. Mrs. McPherson has a Bachelor's of Arts degree, Master's of Public Administration degree, and is a certified electronic health records specialist, and also getting her doctorate in public policy, as she just told me. Ms. McPherson is an adjunct instructor as well at various colleges, so welcome. Next, we have Claudia Boykins. She is the Engagement and Policy Director for the Maternal Intentions Program at the Northern Manhattan Perinatal Partnership. She is responsible for growing and maintaining partnerships and ensuring the financial stability of the Maternal Intentions Program. With a foundation in engineering and technology, Ms. Boykins employs a structured approach to problem resolution that has helped organizations around the world to improve management processes and reach their goals. The author of several book chapters and journal articles, she's earned a bachelor's and master's degree from Cornell University and an MBA from the University of Cape Town. Thank you. Next, we have Dominique Jones, who serves as the Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club of Harlem. Since taking the helm, Dominique has led the organization's expansion, which includes increasing the number of youth served, strengthening and developing innovative new programs and partnerships, and moving to its new state-of-the-art facility at the historic PS 186. Dominique holds degrees from the Spelman College and the New School, where from the latter she earned the distinction as both a Woodrow Wilson Fellow and a Child Welfare Fellow. In 2015, Dominique also completed Columbia University Business School's Executive Education Senior Leaders in Not-for-Profit Management Program. Welcome to you. And last but not least, we have Whitney Files, who is the COO of Harlem Grown, a nonprofit organization dedicated to inspiring youth through mentorship and education in urban farming, nutrition, and sustainability. Working closely with Harlem Grown's founder, Whitney oversees finances, compliance, human resources, and day-to-day operations for 10 agricultural facilities in East and Central Harlem, where HG offers in-school, out-of-school time, workforce development, and community programs. Whitney served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Mali, received her BA from NYU, and earned her MBA in sustainability from Bard College. So welcome to you all. Marilyn Aguirre Molina, professor in the Community Health and Social Sciences Department, will be moderating this session. So with that, let's get started. Thanks.
I'd like to just add my own word of welcome and tell you how delighted I am that we're having for you to come and, as our dean said, educate us in what's going on in our nation. It's green, so I don't know. Okay, got it. All right, good. Well, I'm going to say not all again, but I will say it very briefly. I'm delighted that we can have you here and again educate us what's going on in our neighborhoods. And I didn't even realize, Tisha, that you're above Starbucks. So I walk under you many times a week. So glad to have you. We thought it would be a good idea for each of you to maybe in a few minutes tell us what you do, what your organization does, and the populations that you serve. So, Whitney, would you like to begin?
that working? Good. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here, and especially with such wonderful women leading organizations in our community. And thank you to all of you for coming out to this panel today. So as Meredith mentioned, Harlem Grown, we are a youth development organization started by Tony Hillary, who's our executive director and founder. And Tony will be the first to tell you that he had no plan when he started Harlem Grown 6 years ago. It kind of happened by accident and has kind of developed over time since then. He was volunteering at a school on 131st Street, and there was a garden across the street that the kids called the Haunted Garden. They're afraid to go in there. And he reached out to Green Thumbs, the New York City Parks Department, and figured out how to take over the space and manage it, brought in volunteers, cleaned it out, brought in some soil, and bought 400 seedlings so each child in the school could come out and plant in that garden. And that's really how the organization got its start. He had a realization that the connections that he made with the children by being in the school, volunteering every day, his personal relationships as a mentor, and then also seeing them come out and plant food was really transformational. Kids that couldn't identify vegetables were suddenly dragging their parents across the street to check out their seedling and see what was happening with it and watching it grow. So since then, that was 6 years ago that we started, we did a little strategic planning with PwC in 2014, and really the organization structure started to come into fruition, come to shape through that process, and that's actually where, when I joined on to Harlem Grown about a year and a half ago. Our focus now is we're a youth development organization using farming as a hook. So we have in-school programming, out-of-school time programming, a workforce development program, and community engagement. Our in-school program is working closely with elementary and middle schools and placing mentors in the cafeteria who are there every day for breakfast and lunch, talking to children about healthy eating, encouraging them to eat the salad bar, and really just being a person to talk to kids who are having a rough day and creating that relationship. We also do a curriculum that's twice a month in those schools with K-2, and that's a new thing for us. We're piloting it this year, so look to see how that goes, and we'll talk more about some of our needs there. Our out-of-school time program, we run an intensive summer camp for 7 weeks that is free for 60 children at our farms and also through field trips. We do a Saturday drop-in program that anyone is welcome to, children ages 7 to 13. And we also do a workforce development program that is for young people ages 18 to 24. We work with mostly young men of color who are out of school, not working, and many of whom are justice involved. And we work with Harlem Justice Corps and a couple other feeder programs to have them intern with us. We then hire some of those young men into part-time positions as farm crew. And if they show promise and interest, they eventually become trained to become those in-school mentors. So it's a whole pipeline, but it's a very small program. We've only graduated 2 young people through the whole program. And then the last component is what we're probably most well known for is we have community engagement opportunities where folks can come out and volunteer, all ages, every Saturday at our farm on 134th Street. You're all welcome to come and visit. And that's just one of 10 agricultural facilities that we manage, including a year-round hydroponic greenhouse on 134th Street. We're also building a brand new farm on 127th Street, and Dominique knows my struggle there. But we're finally getting a permit, I think, from the Department of Building. So that will be coming along very soon, and we're really excited to be here to talk with you about some of the challenges and the needs that we have, and looking forward to some collaboration.
Good afternoon. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Dominique Jones, and again, I'm the Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club of Harlem. How many in here have been to a Boys and Girls Club? So several of you are club kids. You remember your life, the fun you had there. Well, you should know that there are 4,000 Boys and Girls Clubs across the country, serving 4 million children ages in the grades K through 12 across the country. And you have a Boys and Girls Club right on 145th Street that is serving approximately 700 kids a year, 200 kids a day across 4 separate sites. And we're able to do that because of the vision that the founders of our club had well over 37 years ago. The then pastor, M.L. Wilson of Convent Avenue Baptist Church, really felt the need to have a place where young people could be and could congregate and to really engage in productive, active, positive development activities. And so him and parishioners of the church established the Boys and Girls Club. And I would like to say that they had a very great vision because in 1981, they purchased a building, PS 186, on 145th Street between Broadway and Amsterdam. And that they had that vision that that entire school would be a Boys and Girls Club. And so a lot of stops and starts, and you know how it goes. You don't have the money, you can't make it happen. Or you don't have the political will, you can't make it happen. But maybe around 10 years ago, the then board, which changed in flavor and character, decided that they were going to partner and collaborate or engage with folks who had the expertise and the know-how, but also those who would help them think differently about how they could see that space. And so I'm proud to say that this fall, not only did we open a brand new Boys and Girls Club, we also provided 79 units of affordable housing to the community. So in that, it really has shaped how we see Boys and Girls Clubs and what we can do as a youth development organization. We're not just about out-of-school times programs, oftentimes really seen as transactional programming. We actually are really about transformational programming. So how can we support children being our focus, but the whole world around them and those that care for them? So I took this job in March of 2015, and I've had the pleasure of helping us move into this new, this kind of new phase in our development. I kind of think of ourselves as a startup now, and the new space has really allowed us to revision who we are. And one of the things that we said is that we want to be outward, and we want to engage with the community in very different ways. There's no point in us trying to create programming that already exists and actually is being facilitated by best-in-class organizations across Harlem, across the city. So if I'm going to do an urban farming program, we want to work with Harlem Grown. If I want to connect kids to, best practices around healthy eating or health, we want to work with organizations like those that are seated here. We want to work with students like you. And we see our space and our place as really a laboratory, an opportunity for those to come in, to learn, as you say, but also for us to learn as well and to build and scale. And so we're excited about what this new phase of our development is, and I'm happy to, you should know we're open to what you're talking about today, and we're pleased that we could share kind of what our vision is and also what our needs are, but we also want to learn more about what your vision is and what your needs are too, because we think that there's definitely some middle ground so that we can continue to serve the over 700 kids and more that we serve. So thank you.
Hello, can you hear me okay? My name is Claudia Boykins, and I'm with the Northern Manhattan Perinatal Partnership. We're located just steps away from here on 127th Street between Malcolm X and Adam Clayton Powell. We've been in existence for almost 25 years, actually. We're a spinoff from the New York Urban League 25 years ago, and still some today. There was a big push to really address infant mortality. And so the New York Urban League had a project looking into infant mortality, specifically in the Harlem community, in the surrounding areas. And over time, they decided to actually spin it off as its own organization. That was the Northern Manhattan Perinatal Partnership. So for 25 years, we've been working in maternal child health in Harlem, in Washington Heights, and now we have some programming in the Bronx as well. We're kind of an umbrella organization. So we've got 5 programs under the umbrella: Healthy Start, Healthy Families, Head Start, Maternal Intentions, a Mitch program. All of these are kind of funded from different funding streams. Some are federal, some are city, some privately funded, but all kind of working together to kind of pool resources to address not just infant mortality, but to address maternal mortality and really just all the social determinants of health that have an impact on the health of moms and families and babies. So if you look at our website, we talk about saving babies, and we've kind of moved from that mission some, and we understand that it's kind of more of a broad approach. And so this idea of collaborating with the School of Public Health is very exciting to us. I can say that we have recognized for a long time that you can't do the kind of work that we do in a vacuum. So this idea of of relying on our partners, stakeholders, everyone who's impacted by this and has an ability to impact the work, to work together. I liked very much what the dean was saying. It's so much more beyond just collaborating and partnering. It's really kind of shoulder to shoulder working to have an impact, and we can only do it together. We've got several collaborative bodies. I'll talk about one that I was mentioning to someone earlier, which is the Maternal Intentions Consortium. So, for instance, we meet quarterly, bringing stakeholders together to really discuss, have kind of thought partners in this work. I'll say a little bit more about the work that Northern Manhattan does. It's home visitation, primarily, so we work very closely with the women and families that we serve. We have a community health worker model that we follow, and it's an effective model. It's one that requires a lot of touch, very close touch, a lot of hand-holding. It's a very work-intensive model. So the idea of relying on partners to do so many of the other things that need to happen in tandem with that kind of work is essential to what we need and what we seek to do more of. In our building on 127th Street, we actually have some resources right there. So we operate a doula program. I saw one of our doulas come in, actually. We offer a fitness gym that is free to our clients, a lactation lounge. We also have activities where moms can kind of just drop in and bring their child and kind of have a community. This idea that it takes a village is a very true one, and it really kind of guides our work. We try to be the village for the women who need and rely on our services. So the outreach within the community, is very extensive, but there's always room for more, and we definitely look to CUNY and kind of thought leaders to help in the research and other kinds of things, and we'll get into those more. But it's been an amazing experience to kind of see firsthand the kinds of things and the kind of impacts that's possible, and I welcome you to work alongside with us.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Good. So my name is Tamisha McPherson. I actually am the Chief Program Officer at Harlem United. I've been there going on 7 years and actually have been positioned in several different roles, and I'm here to just share with you a little bit of what we do. I would not want to put anyone to sleep because we offer so many services, so I'm going to highlight and give you just a brief summary of the work that we do at Harlem United. And I will start off by saying that we started out as a small church actually treating the HIV positive back in the 80s. And we are now moving forward 29 years later of providing not only housing overall, because that's the biggest part of our portfolio. A lot of people assume that healthcare is the biggest part of our portfolio. So we actually provide housing. Most of our housing is actually HIV housing and different types of housing. When I say that, supportive, transitional, and permanent housing. And we are venturing into a new direction of actually going to be definitely working with the shelter system, Department of Homeless Services soon too. Aside from housing, we also offer healthcare. And I want to explain that a little bit because healthcare is pretty broad, but we are a federal qualified healthcare center. I don't know if everybody's familiar with a federal qualified healthcare center, which is abbreviated for FQ8C. So we're federally funded to treat not only the underserved, but the uninsured, the underinsured, and anyone that comes through the doors that has nothing. They may not have any insurance and can't provide any type of funding for the visit. We can't turn people away, and we get federal funding. We receive federal funding to treat that population. Our immigrant population, if you don't want to share your name, and we ask that they share names, but if they don't feel like they want to share their real name or their age, we still treat them. So that is definitely a unique environment for a lot of people that come in, that we won't actually question you and won't turn you away. So the FQ8Cs are expanding. We have about 16 FQ8C locations just in Manhattan, and there's about 96 in the state of New York. So we have a lot of FQ8Cs that a lot of people don't know about. Under that healthcare umbrella, we offer mental health, dental, primary care. We actually do a lot of testing. And then we have a separate department, which I'm going to expand on a little bit, which would be our prevention team, which a lot of our public health grants that we receive, and Harlem United, under the umbrella of Harlem United, we have over 70 grants. So our financial portfolio is diversified from federal to city to state funding. At a minimum, that the budget of $47 million, majority of it is actually restricted dollars. So running an agency and working with the executive team to really work with the community of meeting the population where they are, and depending on what's going on, that's the overview. I actually brought a brief, and I have some of these flyers in the back, to go over some of the additional services that we offer, which would be individual and group counseling, care coordination. We actually have a Voc Ed program. That program has been in existence for about 15 years, and that's not a fully funded program, so that actually comes from our general fund and fundraising. That program helps some of our clients that come to different programs at the agency come in and actually beef up their skills with computer skills. I would actually have to add, and this is very important, communication skills. Some of our clients have not worked in years, so they come in and they actually brush up on a skill set that they can go out and look for a job. Free HIV testing, HCV, and STI and prevention services. Adult day program, if you're not familiar with our adult day program, we have over 370 clients that are enrolled in East and actually Central Harlem programs, which is on 116th Street and 124th Street. And they come to us 7 days a week. They are clients that are HIV positive to be qualified to come to the program. It's a Medicaid-funded program, and they come and actually offer different types of groups, as well as breakfast and lunch. And then we have a food and nutrition program that we offer in the evening. We also have mobile units that go into Brooklyn and the Bronx. We have a medical mobile unit and a dental mobile unit. And last but not least, we actually have several staff that can enroll clients that are not insured, and that's anyone in the Harlem area, because we are based and actually approved to actually register the uninsured into healthcare, which is the Affordable Care Act. So if someone doesn't have insurance, they're not working and may be looking for insurance, we are one of the enrollers here in Manhattan. So with that said, we look forward to definitely working not only with CUNY and the faculty and the students, but definitely with people in the community that don't know a lot about us, because we're the hidden secret with a lot of programs that you don't have to pay for when you come to Harlem United.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate having the opportunity to learn a little bit of what you do. And on this platform, there's enormous amount of activity going on in East Harlem that I'm glad to know about. Before I ask the next question, I think you've gotten a sense from those who have spoken before that we are trying to really forge new relationships. I say that as we depart from the traditional model of schools of public health that are in communities, in the midst of a community, and not as engaged or see themselves as part of the community, so that we're really seeing this as a different way of working in many domains of our activity. So the next question is, generally speaking, what do you see as the role and responsibility of School of Public Health, and in particular a school such as ours that's grounded right here in Harlem? You've touched a little bit on it as you've made your presentations, but now specifically I'd like to know what your thoughts are, and in any order, anyone who would like to address that first.
Hello. Okay, I'll assume that it's on. So I think that there are several ways that we can work together. Right now, I'm in the midst of actually writing a journal paper, and so something that comes to mind, that's front of mind for me is just really just access to written materials. So at a university, you can use your network computer, and you can reach any article that you want to read. Outside of university settings, that's actually not possible at all. So many times I'll come across, an abstract, and it's like, oh, that's exactly what, and of course I can't click through to read the full article, and sometimes even just accessing the abstracts themselves. So more, in general, I would say just a research partner. That is a very key way that I think that we can collaborate and work together. And that would also include things like statistical packaging and statistical methodology, and just kind of being a thought partner / leader in that. When you're down in the trenches and really, working with the women and chasing after a 2-year-old who might have escaped the room, etc., you really don't have the perspective mind, and certainly not the time to design, some solid research. And that is something that would benefit, obviously both sides. We need to understand the impact of what we're doing, even down to the details. Well, did this specific introduction, idea that we introduced work, or did it not? So kind of, to use the information, but then also to communicate it out in order to ground in reality kind of the research that is being done. So I would say if you're going to speak at a conference, or if you're going to do, write a journal article, partner with the CBO. Let us either, come along with you or attend for our own learning, but more importantly, to kind of ground the research that's being out there in the context and in the reality. And that would extend to even poster presentations and so forth. We've got, we sit on a planning committee for NISPA, which is the New York State Perinatal Association. We sit on the planning committee, and there's an opportunity to speak and an opportunity to present a poster. And myself and, the other directors are like, do you have time? Do you have time? No, I don't. So we're not even going to present our work. And here we are sitting on the panel, the planning committee. And it's a terrible lost opportunity for the audience, for the readers of the prospectus, that our voice will not be there. And I think that's the case across all the CBOs I know. And it doesn't have to be that way, especially when you're just literally two blocks away from us, or not even in your case.
Right. Anyone else like to respond to that?
I like to think about it in kind of two. I think we need your intellectual capital. So we want to really have your thoughts around what it is that we're doing to help us to codify what we're doing, but also to disseminate what we're doing in arenas that we may not necessarily be engaged in. As a Boys and Girls Club, people kind of get it, maybe that, you do youth development programming, but they really don't see the day-to-day, and they don't see the implications or the impact that we make on individual children, but ultimately around kind of large, we work in scale in some way, shape, or form. And so helping us to really think about what our impact is, help us to communicate that impact, to really tell a strong story, I think is a very important thing to do. And also, and having that grounded in theoretical, the theory or best practice is also very helpful for us. So I think that that's a key piece. I also think about just, the human capital that you provide. You have faculty and students and administrators who could actually be coming in, as I understand, and supporting our work in a myriad of ways. I mean, we're very fortunate that we have students that are coming to help me develop a grant. I haven't had time to really think about this grant application, or not. It's not even a grant application. It's just the idea of putting together a boilerplate grant proposal for a program that I think is key and essential. So they're actually helping me to put that together, and actually I'll be in a position when the opportunity comes along to say, hey, here's something that really lays out what our work is around health and wellness for our young people. I also would say that your assets, your resources, are things that our children and our families want to access. So it's not necessarily just about us as an organization being able to access this institution to support our goal, but how are you opening the doors to the community in that way? Public health, medicine, these are all areas that we're trying to expose our children, our young people to, even our adults. And so for them to understand the array of opportunities that come out of this work is key and essential. And so my hope is that you as an organization, you as an academic institution, really see your value of cultivating kind of the next generation of public health advocates, of epidemiologists, of the whole line of opportunities that are here for you. So I really urge you to think about yourself in that way, because we're not necessarily thinking about it. I couldn't tell you how many opportunities and jobs could come out of this work that you're doing here. But what if I could share that with young people? They would have a different, because they kind of just see medicine as medicine or nursing. They don't see it as a whole range of opportunities. So I would encourage you to really think about how you open your doors to young people.
Valuable comments that you've made, because they don't think about public health. Many of them don't know really what public health is either. But I just wanted to comment on your experience with our students. It's a fabulous example of how we're learning and learning. You learn, we learn, and we all learn together, because our students are right now from one of our classes, and some of them are here, right? Raise your hand, those who are in that class in the back, sorry. And in the front row, yes. And some of them are working with you, and they're having an incredibly valuable learning experience, and at the same time, they're doing some work for you. And I think that's the reciprocity has got to be characteristic of the work that we do. So thank you for allowing our students, and we have many others if any of you would like. And did you want to comment on that?
I'd like to add to something Dominique mentioned, which is the story. I would have to say the partnerships that we can build and should be building within a graduate program is the experience of, I know I'm going to school to do this and finish, and expecting something different sometimes when you come out and you're in the real world. But it's not only about getting an internship so we can have students come and actually sit with us, but it sounds like they're working on real life, everyday issues. And Harlem United is definitely an experience that I have to say that I wish I had exposure back in grad school to a community health center that actually focuses on public health, of knowing a little bit more. I mean, I wind up actually going to Harlem United years later after grad school, but if I can rewind and if I was able to actually get that experience while I was in grad school, and again, I just want to elaborate, it's not just an internship, but are you working on meaningful projects that really can steer somebody's mind from, okay, this is what I thought I would like to do, but then the exposure of working with clients and hearing the real stories. And again, I can speak on Harlem United. A lot of our clients, we are their family. So it is a community grassroots agency where clients come to us every day, and I'm telling clients on a daily basis, they'll say, I love you, and I'm saying, I love you back. And the difference of working in not only public health, but these are sick clients. Our population overall at Harlem United, majority of our client population either has one issue going on, but a multiple different comorbidities going on, where they're not only struggling for housing, but they're struggling on, you're here telling me to come to my doctor's appointment, but I'm sleeping on my friend's couch last night because you blaming us that we can't get them an apartment, because everybody knows that affordable housing is hard to get in New York. So my takeaway would be not only the experience of working with while you're in a program, but to have meaningful projects while you're there, and teaming up with one or two people, not floating from different departments, because you're not really getting what you may want to get. And then they have you working on, and I'm saying they because agencies do this. I know I was an intern at one point and was working on filing and doing things that weren't meaningful. And then when I went back to class, I had to talk about it, and some other students in the class would have more meaningful projects. So for us at Harlem United, we're definitely open to working with students and really working not only maybe with an executive team member, but working in our day program and seeing the clients that come 7 days a week and actually sitting in groups and hearing their stories. And then the flip side of this is working in the clinics. We have students that are in grad programs, but they still are iffy on, do I want to go back and do this, a PA program, or other areas of healthcare. But the public health sector is so big, and to narrow down what you really want to do is definitely difficult. So again, working in one of the community health centers as well as overall non-for-profit is an experience of a lifetime. And CUNY, actually setting up something like this is a good way to start, to not only hear of what we can offer, but what you may be looking for when you come to actually not only volunteer, but work with a community health center or non-for-profit.
So definitely everything that my colleagues here mentioned, agree with that, and in particular, the need for research and knowledge and sharing that information back out with so many of our staff who just don't have the time. I have a development and communications director. Her job is to fundraise corporate service projects, social media, marketing materials, everything. She doesn't have time to find a study to show, improve the work that we're doing. But the other thing that I was thinking about, and we talked a little bit before the panel, is especially the school that's relocated to a new neighborhood, to really get out and see and survey and understand all the different resources that exist in Harlem around public health and around all these issues that we're trying to serve, and to somehow compile that information, because even ourselves as a small organization, we're constantly trying to find different organizations to refer our participants to. We're focused on education and nutrition and mentorship, but we don't always know where to send our families who are struggling with particular needs. And so having a kind of a resource, a website or something that's constantly updated and maintained by the program would be incredibly helpful and great to share that back out.
Well, just for us to have a feedback loop. So I'm going to promise that I will support the students this summer to create an inventory of Harlem community organizational support and resources. And by August, we'll have that done, and hopefully we will add to it and keep it fresh every 6 months. More than that, it would be too much. But I want to challenge you at a different level, because the relationship between university and community organizations is like a personal relationship. It's like a new boyfriend or something like that. So you've been through probably, and I have too, through multiple frustrating relationships, right? So you're kind of like jaded, and you're thinking like, I'm not ready to really date again. And you're now talking about kind of Saturday night dating, okay? Because you are telling me, I want somebody to go out and dance with. It would be nice to have somebody go and have a couple of drinks with. But I think Marilyn is asking you more about a more existential question. So, like, the question is, so if you were to date again, how would you go about doing it? Because all of you are talking about, wouldn't it be nice if somebody could come and help me write the template for a grant application? I need so much data analysis. Wouldn't it be good if? But this is kind of like Saturday night dating, and we're looking for a relationship. So we want to, like, one day one of us is kind of like going to propose to the other.
Let's just go steady first.
So that's the direction we want to go.
As we were all responding to that question, one of the things that popped into my brain as I was thinking about the importance of academic institutions, and particularly academic institutions that are embedded in the community. We need respite as leaders of not-for-profit organizations, and respite to actually help us to really reconnect with why we do what we do, and to help us to build a strong sense of understanding of the impact that we're making, but in a way that allows us to engage and explore with others who can actually help us think about this work. We spend a lot of time, Whitney just talked about fundraising and, all the things that are really germane to the mission, but don't really speak at the mission, right? And so there are days when I go home and I'm like, well, why am I doing this? If I'm courting a corporate funder, or I'm trying to bring in that volunteer group to execute so that I can engage with the corporate foundation at some point. So, but I need a day, a week, or I need, a period of time where we can just begin to think and begin to explore and to talk and engage with others to help us to think about, one, to affirm what we're doing and make us feel really excited about what we're doing. But I think the other piece of it is to kind of help us to see new directions. I'm always very engaged when I'm finding new sub-strategies or solutions, and I'm developing them with people or I'm hearing about them. So the more you can really create that space for those of us who are actually in the community executing on the work, I think that will go a long way towards achieving our respective impact, and then ultimately really our collective impact.
That dialogue, I think, is essential for both sides that you're talking about, and things that we were struggling with. Well, where do we go from here? Kinds of questions. Whereas you've identified a good laundry list of to-do things that are quite feasible and something that's really within the domain of what we do. But you're talking about taking it to another place, which is really engaging at a more intellectual or collegial level. Is that the way the others of you think you need a space, is what I'm hearing? Would that be of value to the rest of you too? And in what way would that be?
Yes, I definitely agree with what Dominique said. I was even envisioning, I like this term, thought partner. But respite is also fast becoming a favorite term of mine too. But this idea of a space where there is intellectual engagement in why we're doing what we're doing, so that strategies can be born of that. I was just talking to my mentee yesterday and saying that she said, oh, well, how do you become a strategist? And I said, yeah, okay, strategy, that's one thing, but knowing what your destination is and understanding your vision and being really locked into what that vision feels like, looks like, smells like, who else is locked into it. And we often don't get that opportunity to re-lock into that vision that sparked us to go into these fields to begin with. I left a lucrative, many of them probably left other careers to do kind of satisfying work in this area, and just getting back and locking back into that, is incredibly important. Because then you can get through the specific strategies and how, and then it also allows space for creativity. You don't have to do it the way it was always done. You're locked into the vision. That gives you all of these options to achieve that vision. So absolutely, I certainly agree.
Something else that I had written down when I was thinking through this question was some sort of community council type of model. So creating sort of a space to bring together students, faculty, practitioners in this space, but also community members who are interested in working on these sort of issues, to talk about what are the challenges facing Harlem around public health. What have we already been doing as organizations that's been effective? What have we learned from that? What is the knowledge coming out of the academic space from other parts of the country and the world? And, where do we want to go from that? What's the action plan? What are different key things that we collectively, as folks focused on these issues, want to try to address in the next year, 2 years, 3 years? And kind of thinking about that kind of bigger picture action. Obviously challenging to get off the ground, but really thinking about the big picture and what sort of impacts we can make together as a group.
I'm curious about that because I know the years that I either ran an adolescent program in Harlem or worked with CBOs, there's so much pressure, the day-to-day pressure, and usually funding, and the dynamics of these random acts of cruelty that come from public sector sometimes make it hard to move away from what you were just describing. So how feasible would you think that is with other groups that would want the kind of, intellectual time out to recharge? Is that a reality? Because what you suggested is a great idea, having some sort of a community council with school. But the feasibility is the question that I'd like to pursue a little bit. Can you hear me?
Currently, we are going through a strategic planning. Strategic planning process right now. And a little bit of what Dominique said, it's really a think tank meeting, and it's a whole day. It's actually been for the last few months, which this has been my first experience, not only sitting in a meeting like this, but something similar, because I sit on a board in Brooklyn actually falls under the CUNY umbrella, and they have something where they have students coming in, which is more of an advisory think tank forum where you come and you listen to not only what the students have to say and what they can actually get out of what the school is doing. And it's pretty interesting. It's quarterly, but going back to what Dominique said, the time that you really need to block out to focus on something like this can be so much more meaningful for the agency long term. Because work, and doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result. So there has to be some type of time that's blocked out. Initially, I was even saying the strategic planning meetings that are talking about from 10 to about 6 once a week, takes out a lot of time, but that's the only way to get executives in the room to really sit down with no phones. You can't even have your phone, and to really sit down and brainstorm. But I'm thinking of a similar setting with working with the students. Piggybacking off of what Dominique said, which doesn't happen. I mean, if my boss didn't say that we had to do it, I don't think anybody would actually block out a day to sit down and talk about strategic planning opportunities. But similar to what Dominique was saying, I really like that idea of blocking out time and really devoted time and coming prepared to really have a think tank discussion.
To your point around feasibility, it ain't feasible. I hate to kind of say it, it's not the easiest thing to do to get away for 2 hours a day or a whole day. But I also think that it's important that you help us to make the case to be able to take those times off. I think that, when we have been able to, as a board, I serve at the pleasure of 20 individuals. And when we've made the decision to block a full day, our work has advanced tremendously. When I've made the decision to go to a conference or to go to, just to spend some time with someone who's thinking about a question or an issue, my work changes. And it actually becomes I become more efficient and charged up and ready to go. So I think that the school here can really help us to make the case as not-for-profit leaders of the importance of this, this type of engagement, so that we're in a position to be able to advance. Again, we keep talking a lot about, we talk about collective impact, but we don't do it really. We think it's the great thing, but we don't do it. But it's these types of forums that enable us to be able to really begin to see who, what's going on with EP? Oh, I can tap into that. What are they researching here? I just, you're doing something on youth adolescent health, and I got a whole bunch of teenagers. And so, but we have to be put in a place to be able to engage with one another, to learn and understand what others are doing. Also, the one last thing I would talk about, you have to equip people to be able to understand how to navigate in those kinds of conversations and how to partner. It's not a science, it's an art. And, where we're, I think we're fortunate at Boys and Girls Club is that we had this really amazing opportunity with a space in a community that doesn't have spaces. So, hey, you come over here, you need to meet, you need to bring some kids here, we can do that, but then that opens up the dialogue. So you're in this really unique opportunity with fabulous space, with views. So the reality is you have that opportunity to help open people's minds up and to begin to engage in real thoughtful conversation that advances your mission, but also advances others.
It sounds like we also have a real pool of resources to share back and forth. Did you? Oh, no.
I was thinking about, what's the carrot? Like, how do you get people in? And I think that having a very clear objective for what the council would accomplish and being very well facilitated in terms of bringing people together. Because as soon as you have one meeting where people feel like they're spinning wheels and nothing's coming out of it, you immediately are going to lose them. But what are some sort of like resources that can be available and offered through some sort of council, through some sort of group like this, whether it be access to faculty time, student groups to work on different projects, connecting funders to the work that folks are doing. Nothing brings nonprofit leaders together like funders. And finding out that a funder is attending a meeting. So, thinking about like what are those ways that kind of engage people into a meeting, and it's not easy. There's always a million things going on, but I think that being in a new space, starting off new as a new organization, like you have the momentum to try to start
some
something.
assets to bring to this invitation of sorts. Before I open it up to questions or comments, is there anything that maybe we didn't ask you that you want to share with us, or some thoughts that you would like to bring forth to us? No? Oh, good.
But I have specific things, but I don't know if this is the right time to share it, though, like needs and things that we're looking for at Harlem Grown, but I don't know if that's off topic.
Well, I think you've really listed a bunch of items, concrete things that we can do. And fortunately, this is being taped, so we'll go back and download all of that information. And you'll make some students very happy, too, because it sounds like you'll be very welcoming to have them work with you or share whatever they can bring.
Okay. I'll just make a brief comment, kind of along the lines of how we can make sure that something comes out of, these efforts, because the last thing that I think any of us want is, just kind of more meetings or more times to kind of come together. What I can say is that we should make sure that that there's a repository or there's a structure, that this is institutionalized. Because I don't know if it's true for other organizations, but we have a high turnover. So, the people that we may engage with and may get excited, and I suppose that since you're a student teaching, you have a high turnover as well, because students come through, they graduate, et cetera. So just really putting some effort and some resources into institutionalizing it so that whatever it is that is created, that it stays. And the resources should include actual physical space. It should actually include physical space. So as we talked about, is it practical, to have, a quarterly meeting or what have you, and carve out the space time-wise. Something that may alleviate that is carving out the space physically as well. If there is a dedicated lounge or something where people come and there might be thought questions that are around the space, so that kind of keeps the focus as to why we're there. Then, we know that between 4 and 6 on every day or every Tuesday, that this space is there, and there's likely to be an individual too who is seeking, some meaningful discussion. Both students, faculty, community work, community leaders can come and have, these kinds of discussions with some kind of guidance as well. So that's what, just institutionalize whatever it is.
I think that's almost like the first thing to do, but that we'd have to do with you, some of us here, and certainly others, to do that with you to figure out how do we do that, and how does the feasibility question get responded to. And I'm sure it makes our dean very happy, because he has wanted a space for us to have this open to the community. So he's been thinking about this stuff, and I guess you got that right, Dean Allingman.
Yeah, it's essential, identifying that space, the physical space that's conducive, that also working.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say let's put that on the top of our list to figure out how do we convene and how we can move forward with giving you space in our sharing and learning from whatever dialogue comes forward. So I will open it up to questions. If anyone in the audience has a question or comment or idea you'd like to share. Okay.
I have a comment, and thank you very much for opening your hearts to us. I think you're frank, and that's very helpful to us. But let me challenge you to think from our perspective a little bit. So, as you can see from Professor Aguirre Molina, we are embarking on a new chapter in organizing our relationship with community organizations in a way that's mindful of how we can be most useful, but also mindful of the critical mass. I mean, we are 600 graduate students and 50 full-time faculty, or 53 full-time faculty. And so we want to be able to invest in the variety of skills that we have in a way that's meaningful to you. And if we spread ourselves too thin, then we'll be useless to anyone. So from your perspective, I want to hear it from you. We will have to internally discuss that as well. You think that if we start, I like your idea very much, by the way, and I was going to invite our faculty leadership here to think together of perhaps organizing a retreat sometime in June for a group of community organizations, bring in the Department of Health as well, and ourselves, and have a mini retreat of thinking of how to organize our roadmap. It's more than a strategic plan. It will also define how we engage each other in the most meaningful way. But do you think we would invite 5 organizations, 10 organizations, 12 organizations? I mean, the problem here is that the needs are tremendous. Obviously, we selected you because you represent strength, but and you also represent a certain diversity in services that you provide. But from your perspective, in terms of creating that forum, or a collaborative forum of organizations with our young school, what intuitively, and you don't have to think too much about it, just respond intuitively. You already have a number in your mind, so keep that number and share it with us. You think we should start with 6, 10, 12 organizations?
Get in trouble when you select. And particularly in Harlem, you get in trouble when you select. And so, what I would say to you is that you may have to think around the roadmap of how do you get to engage all of the organizations over a period of time, and be very intentional about the fact that you're committed to all of the CBOs. And the work that you're going to do in the initial piece is really about setting the stage. And there can be some that raise their hand and say, okay, I want to participate and I want to engage and help you think that through. And then there'll be those who are going to say, well, let me wait and see what you do, right? So it's really incumbent upon the school and those that really decide to found it, or, be kind of the founders of this initiative, to really set the pace. And you'll find that there are going to be a whole bunch of people that are going to run with you, as long as you're very intentional about it. So I would say don't have a number, just look for volunteers. And those volunteers are going to be the ones that are going to be really committed to the work that you do.
Thank you. I think you're talking about something very concrete, and our thoughts initially were, do we call a workshop? It's to address some of the things that you're asking with respect to skills, so that whatever forum it is, whatever shape it takes, it's really bringing in other groups and do that thoughtfully. Because I know turf issues do get picked up in communities.
Two, which is key, is really looking maybe not just at a number, which you mentioned, don't even look at that, but the commitment that's going to come from those agencies. And I would be sitting here lying to you when we, if I didn't say this, when we try to reach out to other agencies, it's hard to get information or to actually get any feedback. So you would really want a commitment from agencies, going back to what Dominique said, that really want to volunteer. Are you interested? Because just because you work for a non-for-profit, which to me is stereotyped a lot, I work for a non-for-profit, that's great. What do? Do you actually touch the community? Are you making a difference in the community? So it's very important, whoever you're going to be outreaching to, if you don't hear from them, I wouldn't continue contacting them. That's basically in a nutshell. Because working for an agency, and again, the non-for-profit world is very, very, everybody's busy. You have less people, you have one person doing maybe 5 to 8 jobs, and they're paid lower than most environments or facilities or corporations outside of the non-for-profit world. So the expectation is, oh, here comes another project. And we don't want people to look at it like that. It's not necessarily another project. You're helping not only students, but the student opportunities can lead to a job in this industry. And again, and Dominique is definitely the star here because I keep referring back to Dominique. Dominique mentioned something earlier in regards to building the future of public health. People don't know and get the exposure. We're going to have a shortage. We already have a shortage under the healthcare umbrella of primary care providers. It's going to be the same thing. And the risk factors and everything that comes with the public health arena, they're actually the risks are going up. And we have less people wanting to engage in the work that we do. So, yes, we applaud and ready to really work with you, but the commitment is going to be the key, because you can schedule a meeting, how many people are going to show up. So just thinking about that too. If they don't respond, move on to the next agency.
Challenge for us is the so what. What would that be that would attract them? Because you've made the right point. The daily life of CBOs is sometimes becomes unmanageable, and looking for the funding wagon is a chronic activity, I believe. So what is the most attractive thing that we would gather people around?
Well, we did mention the funding, certainly, but I want to actually look at that question from a different angle. I want to actually turn it on its head, and it may not be the same turn that you're envisioning, but what I want to say is that, and it's something you said also, with the collaborations and the consortiums and so forth, it is hard to get people to come out, and we are looking for, what is that carrot that will attract? So what I will say to you is, I think your assignment early days is to attend those meetings, because we will see the commitment on your side. So rather than calling us to give 2 hours, to you come to our consortium meetings, you come to our collaborative events, all of these. There are these organizations, everyone is attempting, because everyone understands the value of what we're talking about here. And there's an effort, there are several efforts underway. Come and plant yourself there and listen to hear where the opportunities is. Okay, we'll bring 5 students to that, or we'll, set a time where you can come. We'll spend a half a day trying to find a space exactly like this one, where we can have a meeting. If you were at the meeting, you would say, oh, well, just come and use the 7th floor auditorium. What's the problem? Oh, thank goodness. That's done. And it's not just that. That's just one example. But you'll hear those kinds of things. And they're just like, well, why are you guys stressing about that? Just, press that button. What's the problem? But you'll only hear that if you're in our meetings as well. So that will we'll be happy to see you, because instead of having 25 people at our meeting, we'll have 27, which is great. But also, it won't be additional resources and work on our side.
That's a real important aspect of all of this. So you'll see many of us at your meetings. Just invite us or let us know, and once the inventory is done at the end of the summer, we'll know who to go visit. and connect with, but as a first step. Again, comments, questions? Yeah, Diana?
So I wonder if sort of parallel tracks would be, the ideal way forward. I'm thinking about, several of the panelists mentioning that there's, work that you've done, research that you've done, program development and implementation, but just kind of sitting on, right? Not able to find the time to look at the data and write it up and interest in partners. And that's a very sort of low-hanging fruit in my mind and immediate. And then separate from that is the bigger vision, the longer-term strategic plan. And my feeling is that, maybe if those two things are happening in parallel to each other, that might get things, more immediate things done, experience with working together and greater knowledge, on both sides or on many sides, and maybe also inform the strategic plan, right? Make it less abstract and grounded. So I don't know that. I wonder what your thoughts are about that, and then I immediately think to offline after this meeting, ways in which the more immediate opportunities, information might be gathered, or next steps for exploring that. So two parts, I guess.
Yeah. So I definitely think your comment is spot on. It kind of makes me think about my work in my previous job around community building. And you really need to develop a direct relationship between two people or two organizations before you can build a larger strategy. If we're working together on a project with your graduate students, I am much more likely to come to then a larger meeting that's called, because we have a relationship and I respect that relationship and it's valuable to us as an organization. So I think that as you start to identify who are the partners out in the community around Harlem, to kind of go out to meet them on their terms, see their programs, ask them what they need that is low-hanging fruit, that is easy for the graduate school to provide and support, and then from there to kind of move on to this larger, council model or thought group. And I think that you're right. I think that's a great tactic.
Thank you. I was wondering if there's some kind of coordination or umbrella group that already has, some kind of a roadmap or a strategic plan that cuts across different organizations in Harlem.
So I would say that there's probably not one organization or one concern. There's many. And I think that some of the challenges are that there's coalitions that are funded in a certain way that have to meet with these different groups. And there's organizations that they've been getting together for years, and this is what they do, and and it's hard to kind of penetrate that group. So I think that there's a way to think about, part of that mapping might be about where are those coalitions? What is their purpose? How long have they been meeting? What have their achievements been? And in that, I think you'll be able to kind of see, you guys, you connect the dots, right? Connect the dots for us about where we're duplicating effort, where there's real opportunity if they added, a federally funded, healthcare center in to execute on their mission. I think that might be a great step for you, but there are a lot of coalitions.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so maybe the first step is even just form like a smaller group, to sketch out, what this system kind of looks like and pre-identify some linkages or gaps, right? And then use that information to then plan for the larger meeting in the fall. Thank you. It's very helpful.
I think that the idea that we just find out who is out there, that's first and foremost. Some of you may or may not know them either, because that tends to happen when you're busy in a community. And that first step might begin to establish the roadmap for who do we talk to and how and for what? Yes.
Can I ask you, can you hear me? I'm Joan Dorn, and I'm from the CUNY School of Medicine, and we're also brand new. And I want to publicly thank Dean Almohandes and Diana because they thought enough to invite us. I'm the chair of the Department of Community Health and Social Medicine. We have a mission to train primary care physicians. Our students are about 90% New York City residents. They are amazing young people. I have 4 business cards out. I have 4 places where I think we could bring students to you in the summer that could be really great. And again, just want to thank you because this is a new partnership where public health and medicine are working together, and so we're happy to be part of it. Thank you for enlightening me on all the great work that you do. Thank you.
More comment, question? Oh, yes, Anne.
Hey, is this on? Just to piggyback off of what she was saying, I'm putting on my dietetic internship director hat now and saying, I would love to date all of you. Swiping right vigorously, metaphorically speaking, and just listening to what you're talking about, what your programs do, I'm already mentally checking off what competencies they could meet by going and helping you do things. And the first thing I usually say when I'm trying to recruit someone to host my interns is, what can we do for you? We have these skill set, we have these people that are trained and just like need to put the last 10% of their training together. They already have a lot of things that they can do. Ask, do you need someone to teach a class? Do you need someone to put together handouts for you? Do you need someone to write a blog? Do you need someone to write a newsletter article? And we have people with the skills, so it's not about imposing more work on you to do things with our students. It's, what can we do for you and how can we partner better? So just to get that in there.
Cards after this too, I bet, right? Anything else? Anybody else? Well, I think our dean is going to have a few closing words to say, but I want to thank you so very, very much for accepting our invitation without any questions practically. I really appreciated that you were so willing and so interested in joining us. And as been said over and over again, it's a new day for us, and it's also a new day for schools of public health working with communities or being partners with communities. So just the beginning of good things that are going to happen, and I look forward to that, and I'm sure we all do. And our dean, would you like to close?
Sure. Just to thank you heartily for again your honesty, your openness, and your humility. We hope to be able to reciprocate the same honesty, openness, and humility. These are the key elements of a good relationship. Again, I'm shameless, and I'm going to say we want to date you. So, hey, and we're not looking for a short-term relationship, but we want to build a long-term relationship. And I must admit, although there is an urgency, and I hear it loud and clear, I need this, I need this, I need help with that. And I beg you to consider the merits of stepping back a little from the immediate needs and thinking more of a global, sustainable, solid relationship. Because the elements engaged in either of these two things may be different. And we will be better prepared to respond to these immediate needs when they are presented to us within a framework of trust and collaboration and knowledge. Because what happens is the knee-jerk reaction of I can respond to this and I can respond to that is that we may not be fully prepared. We may have just heard what we are willing and able to hear. When you said, I need this, we heard it, blah, 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 in our Japanese, okay? So without really knowing you, the response to your need may be inadequate, and then it interferes with building long-term trust. Because then you say, didn't they hear me? I said I need this, and they came back with that. But don't blame us, because without knowing you, that happens a lot. So I want to approach you in a vein of building trust. So allow us to approach you with a certain degree of mindfulness, and please exercise patience and don't translate it into we are not willing to support you, but we want to support you correctly. That's number one. Number two, in my previous role as a dean in another school, we created something we called legacy projects. And these legacy projects were projects that went on. Students came and students went. Alumni asked the next wave of students, so have you been to the criminal justice program? What did you do in the jail? Have they improved their HIV program? When we went there, there was this, there was that. It becomes part of the culture of the school that we are with you in your HIV program, or in your urban farming, or in your young boys and club, or with your young mothers and pregnant women. This becomes part of our culture, that we are there, we learn with you, and we serve you. To build these legacy programs, there are several steps needed, not the least of which is sustainability and resource support. All of this requires effort, but we are a group of smart people, so we will hopefully not disappoint you. But all of these things take time. Be patient. Thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Marilyn, for opening this beautiful door to us. We stepped into a very beautiful space, and we thank you for it. Finally, I want you to enter into that space with confidence. Why? Because the new accreditation criteria for the Council of Education and Public Health, which is the accrediting body of schools of public health, emphasizes the importance of field experience. It used to be part and parcel of our master's training. Now, it has become part and parcel of our doctoral training. That is quite new and promises you even a higher caliber of trained professionals in training that can provide you with services. Doctoral students in the past were more engaged with classroom instruction, research, and dissertation. Now there is an added component of field experience that needs to be evaluated. We have a disproportionately large number of doctoral students compared to other schools. So of our 600 students, 25%, almost 150 of them are doctoral students. These are very powerful agents to translate our goodwill and our good intention and skills to your needs. So we need you in that regard more than we ever have in the past. My very final word is, a good relationship is a relationship where trusting and loving partners can also be critical of each other without being hurtful and being constructive. So expect us also not always to compliment you. This may be on our first or second date. We'll tell you how wonderful your conversation is, how great the meal was, but eventually we're going to say things like, you know, couldn't you show up on the date on time? Or something like that. So you also are allowed to reciprocate constructive criticism so that we can build something that is based on understanding and respect. So I thank you very much. I thank our faculty. I thank the participants. And I promise you that this is only the first of many engagements. And if I don't fulfill my promise, I'll give you my cell phone number, and it's 917-753-5765. It's part of my signature on my email. And if you feel that I have betrayed your trust, just call me on my phone. Thank you so much for being here today.